Hi, I'm Michael Cazayoux.
And I'm Adee Cazayoux, and you're listening to the WAG podcast. This podcast is about health, wellness, and personal development.
Each episode is a short conversation between Adee and I on a single topic with actionable steps. We cover everything from food, mindset, fitness, and relationships.
We started WAG because of the way health and fitness changed our lives, so we hope to share a tool or two that helps you along your way. Hey, this is Adee Cazayoux, and you're listening to the WAG podcast. Today's episode is a little bit different. We had some people apply to do a live coaching session with me on nutrition and any obstacles that they're encountering. So today's episode is going to be a recording of one of those coaching calls. Hope that you get some value of listening to this person's story and how we talk about what's going on for them and maybe relating it to yourself. If you love this podcast, we would really appreciate you taking the time to leave us a 5-star review and tell us what you love about it. Tell us what you're taking away from it. It is really the best way for us to get this podcast out there and to reach more people, and we would really appreciate you taking the time. So thank you, and let's get into this coaching call. So we are recording. This is our first live coaching call. First for you, I'm assuming.
Yes.
I'm talking to Rebecca, and for everybody listening, I guess, that we're just the two of us right now, so it's sometimes awkward to be like, everyone listening, but this is the first time we've ever met. I know very little about you, and we sent out a little form asking people if they wanted to do a live coaching call, and I think we asked 2 questions, and that's really all the information that I have about you, but today we're going to spend at least 45 minutes to talk about what's going on with you and how I can help. And hopefully just hearing your experience can help somebody else out there as well.
Cool.
To start, my first question for you is, if by the end of this Zoom call, we're actually on Zoom, if everything worked out perfectly, or you could wave a magic wand and this ended up being everything that you ever dreamed of, what would you have at the end of it?
I guess at the end, magically, this wand, I wouldn't be like scared or apprehensive or frustrated or what all those kind of negative adjectives about tracking macros and like doing the whole calorie tracking. Sorry, that's the door out there. Like just kind of freaked out and apprehensive about, like tracking macros and like being diligent about doing that. Cause right now, like I just don't even do it. And I'm like, that just freaks me out thinking about it. So
tell me a little bit about what it is that you want to achieve. Like, what kind of goals do you have? Why do you want to do it in the first place?
Yeah, and so that was part of that the 21-day challenge that I'm taking through you guys. I was like, state your goal and write it down. And so I wrote down my goal where it was like, where I want to be able to use macro counting and like the calories stuff, all that jazz to like reach whatever goal I have in mind aesthetically or functionally or like athletically. So say I was like, oh, I want to be able to say I want to lose 2% body fat or, perform at this level. And I know how to dial that in through nutrition. Because right now I'm like, do I just eat more? I don't know. Do I just like, I'm exercising more. Should I eat more? But I'm also afraid of getting fat. So I don't know. So then but I have no idea how to actually do it intelligently.
I see what you're saying. So is that one of your goals, is to lose 2% body fat?
Well, I have no idea because I haven't even done like the testing. But like you Google, you're like, oh, what does 20% body fat look like? And you're like, I look like I'm like about that, so I must be 20, like I don't know, 18%, or I thought I would have been 15 or whatever. And then you're like, maybe I want to be like 12% body fat. And so like, but I have no idea like how to like tune anything to attain any kind of aesthetic goal or even like any kind of like athletic goal. I just kind of go by feel and by what I've always been doing.
If we took the numbers completely out of it and we take the tuning in and the dialing in completely out of it, is it safe to say that you want to reduce body fat to some degree, but you're not exactly sure how much, and that would be a goal of yours to change your body composition in that way?
Yes, body composition for sure. And for honestly, like the biggest goal I've had that I get so frustrated that I just like, I'm like, well, I guess I'm just small. I don't know. It's like I want to get like bigger muscle or more muscle. And then I'm just like, well, but I'm also, it's like that crappy little like, I want to get muscle. And then you read stuff and you're like, you got to eat more, to feed. And then you have to like lift heavier. And then when you kind of start dabbling into it, like you gain a little bit of weight and you're like, oh God, I can't do this. I think I'm getting fat. And then you just kind of stop. That's what I do. And then I have no idea like what to do in terms of like following any kind of set nutrition. Cause then I'm like, well, I have no idea. What I was doing was fine. So I'll just go back to that. So
Yeah, I mean, what you were doing was comfortable and it's keeping you in this place where you're comfortable. And then as soon as you get out of it, it sounds like you think a lot. Think a lot about, am I doing the right thing? Like there's so much information out there that it's really hard to know if you're doing the right thing. And then as soon as you start, if it's not 100% going exactly as you imagined, it's scary because it's not where I was comfortable. Why am I doing this?
right. And honestly, and I think part of the missing piece, which is why like almost probably years at this point where I've been following you guys and I'm like, maybe I should do the coaching, is like, like I would never, like I have a degree in computer science and math, and I would never just be like, okay, let's try to figure out how to program, and then like never actually ask a teacher or never like follow a course or do anything like that. But I imagine I can do it with nutrition. I'll just like just read random stuff and see if you can piece it together, and then don't be frustrated if you can't actually get the results you want, but then I do. And so
Yeah,
I'd like to learn the effective tools that I know are going to work so that I can like implement them and not be discouraged that, oh, maybe you just picked the wrong thing, or maybe you're just doing the wrong thing. It's just stick with this. And what is that exactly? And know that if you just follow it, you'll be fine.
Okay, I have a couple thoughts on that, but I'm going to come back to it. I just made a note. I'm going to come back to that for a second. I have a couple
Okay.
first before we get so you
Okay.
say you are in computer science or you have a degree in computer science. What do you do for work? I'm trying to gather where this thinking comes from, because I'm imagining it's not just here, it's somewhere else. This is like it's definitely a super skill of yours. I can this is one of your super strengths, that you think and you can hold a lot of information and you can find the right way to do things. And when I work with some software developers often, and they love knowing what I do or doesn't black and white that way. So tell me more about that. What do you do for a living, or for school, or for work, or tell me more about that.
Yeah. So it's funny that you say that because I'm a data analyst. So I do like data science stuff. So it's like gather the data, analyze it. What meaningful information can you gather from this? And then how can you, like report on that? And how can you communicate that to people who don't necessarily know what's going on to make some actionable decision? So like I'm always like, okay, how do I best do this? How do I analyze this in the best way so that people get it? And then, yeah, so that's what.
It makes sense that probably works incredibly well for you, why you're really good at doing that job. But there is a shadow side to that super skill of when it translates to areas like nutrition that aren't so black and white. You can
Right.
panic state of, I want to know what the right thing is so I can know the actionable steps to take forward, like I tell my clients or I tell my coworkers or whoever it is I'm working with. But in nutrition, it's a little bit trickier than that. And there is not necessarily this.
It's not an equation every time. Like, this is what you do, and you get 1 + 1 is 2 every time. right?
Definitely not. And the issue is too, is that it's, even if you find what works for you right now, in 6 months or in 1 year, something different, it could change all of a sudden.
Right.
So I'm gonna circle back to that. I just want to hear a little bit more about how, when you are trying, so it sounds like you've tried a bunch of times and then
Mm-hmm.
and then said F it. And
Yeah.
I think in your questionnaire you said, I'm just gonna enjoy my dinner and not try so hard.
Oh, right. Because in there I said, because I cook like all of my meals, like all of my dinners, I usually cook them. And, like cooking is sometimes you like add different stuff or whatever. And so then I'm like, God damn it. Like, do I need to like track, like instead of just pouring the olive oil, I have to like measure it. And then I have to like measure all the things. And I'm like, and then I'm just like, whatever. I guess I just won't do it, because it's such a hassle. And every, not like every meal is different, but generally I'm not following, which is ironic that I'm saying this. I don't follow a recipe every time, so it feels cumbersome, I guess.
So it is cumbersome. So
Mm-hmm.
especially when you're just starting to do
Mm-hmm.
this, I would imagine when you first started to do your work right now, or when you first started school, it was probably more cumbersome at the beginning when
Right.
you had to spend more time. It's kind of like in university, you have to spend more time studying for the exam, and then you go to the exam, and then you go into regular life and you don't have to study as much. You kind of just remember
Right.
things that
Right.
anytime you start something, it definitely is cumbersome. So you could feel validated that it makes sense. It's a lot of work, because it is a lot of work. I'm not saying that that's the way that you should do things. I am definitely in the camp of, I have 800 million options for you, other than that option of the way to heading towards your goals, for sure. So when you do start your level of, I'm going to try and dial things in and be more precise, how long does that usually last?
Honestly, it lasts like about a week. And then I'm like, because when I started, I think the longest it lasted when I started the 21-day challenge was, I was like, okay, like just, you have your baseline of macros and calories that you have to hit. And then you guys kind of like talk you through, like, yes, it's kind of like riding a bike in the beginning, where it's like hard to do it, but then once you get it, you just kind of like can go through the motions, and you give tips on how to make it easier when you do have to track and weigh. So I was like, okay, just kind of stick to simple stuff, and maybe for this week eat the same breakfast. And then and so like it was like those tiny goals that you're like, set tiny goals to achieve, or tiny tasks to achieve your goals. So I was like, okay, so it took me like, I was like, just set 20 minutes after dinner, not before, not during your prep, to track what it is I made for dinner. And so that I could put it in the little My Fitness app. And then that lasted about 5 to 7 days. And I was like, yeah, okay, I'm tired. I'm tired, and I don't want to have to do this every day. And so then I stopped, but then I just tracked like breakfast, which was like oatmeal and whatever. And then I was like, well, if I'm only doing breakfast, it's not even tracking the rest of my day. So then it just weaned off. So yeah.
I completely can relate in so many ways, and so many different life. Have you tried anything else
In terms of like tracking, or?
in terms of trying to achieve your goals in general? So you want to gain muscle and you want to improve your body composition. Have you tried any other way of getting there other than weighing and measuring your food?
So I just generally will like, I saw like the precision nutrition thing, where it's like, it's like the size of your hand thing, where it's like, oh, like here's a measurement that's like the size of your hand. And then I was like, okay, that's fine. And I never actually did that. So then I was like, okay, I know the biggest thing is like protein. So maybe, and then like I hear you guys and lots of people are like, just focus on getting, like your body weight or whatever in protein a day. And then the rest is kind of like however you want to get that. And so I was like, okay, I bought some protein powder. And then I was like, and then again, like, I was like, I don't even like protein powder and I don't like having to drink this. And I was like, maybe I'm not meant to have muscles. And then I just like stopped doing that too. It's kind of sad actually saying this all to you and having to admit how many times I failed at doing this.
I have been doing this for 14 years, and I cannot explain to you how many times I failed. First of all, no judgment for me at all, because I've been there and worse and seen there and worse. And for me, I'm supposed to have all the answers and know all the I still fail. So have at least some peace of mind knowing that even the people that have been doing this for so long and have all the answers still struggle. You're human. For sure. And I want to commend you, first of all, for trying so hard. You have a couple moments where you say some things where that's what I want people to try and avoid is I don't want you to get to the place where you're like, maybe I'm just not meant to have muscles.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe nothing works for me. Or maybe I'm never going to be able to stick to something.
And I know that's not true. That's just like the bullshit you say in your head when you failed and you're like, God, and you're like, well, and then it's like that cycle of like, what's wrong with you? Just try something else then, or try it again. And then you fail. And then you're like, you know what? I'll just be fine being like thinned muscled or look like I don't lift or whatever, or like not be strong as strong as I want to be or whatever. You're like, you can just deal with that as opposed to like having to do the harder thing of like of changing your eating habits or whatever that habit is. So yeah,
everyone would reach a threshold at some point when you make commitments to yourself. I'm going to start doing this. And then 5 to 7 days later, you're like, screw it. I'm totally out the window. If you had a friend who was making commitments to you and then 5 to 7 days later, they're like,
I know. Yeah.
Not anymore. Stop being friends with that person. So as a way to protect yourself, you're just like, I'm not going to keep trying, or I'm going to adopt this belief that, if I believe that I just can't gain muscle, it's easier psychologically than to keep breaking commitments to yourself, which you're in right now. Commitments to myself, I'm breaking these commitments, and then I want to protect myself from the feeling because it sucks to break commitments with yourself. All do it over and over and over again. And we put up with it for way longer than we would if it was our partner or if it was our friend or if it was anybody else in the world. We put up with it because we can't really escape ourselves.
Right.
So it totally makes sense for me. I have 3 things that stood out to me that I'm gonna point out that I hope can help you. And the first thing is this whole your muscle of needing to know and having the data and having the answer and knowing what works. That muscle is so strong that do you think that there's a way that we can swing to the other side? I don't know exactly what would work for you, but we can work together to try and find that. To work to the other side of developing the trust or understanding, at least, that in this situation, you have to scour the data for long enough to discover what might actually work. And that takes some like trial, error. And you just can't know before you put in some time and effort what's going to work for you and what's not.
So I just have to say that was a really great analogy. Thank you for putting it in the context of something that I understand, because I was like, oh my God, like that's exactly what you would do in a problem where it's not like, oh, okay, like this is a predefined problem that we know how to analyze. It's like, no, we don't even know the data. We have to first look at it for a while. And then after some, analysis, then maybe we'll find some patterns or whatever that may not have been apparent beforehand, and it's a process that you have to be patient with and work through. So in this context, I'm like, what? oh my gosh, you can do the same thing with this. And to me, like my knee jerk reaction is how? How does that
Okay,
work?
I can totally, with the how I can work with for sure. I just have the base level of understanding that we're starting in a place where saying things like, oh, I want to know what's going to get me the results before I get there, it's
Mm,
already setting yourself up for failure, because then as soon as you put in the time
mm,
and the effort to do it and you don't get the results, you're like, why am I even doing this? So already having the attitude of being curious and search
mhm,
instead of looking for an answer first can help you at least be more receptive to when things don't
mm.
necessarily go 100% your way.
Okay.
That's the base that I'm looking for. Are we there?
Yes. Yes. That totally makes sense.
Okay, perfect. My next thing for the how is, what is clear is that diving into tracking everything you eat is just not working for you. And it's okay that that doesn't work for you. It's a lot of time and energy and effort right now for you to just dive right into. It sounds like it's a little bit, I'm biting off more than I can chew, and then I just get
Mhm.
frustrated and I stop.
Right.
There is so many steps in between that you can follow before, getting all the way to, I'm going to weigh and measure and track everything I eat. That's a huge leap from not doing that
Mhm.
at all.
Mm.
So I can come up with some suggestions of some things to try. And so your goal is improved body composition and improve gaining muscle. And you're training in the gym. So tell me a little bit more about what type of training that you're doing in the gym.
So right now, I actually like a month ago, like maybe as of last like September-ish, I kind of was like working a lot, and then I just kind of stopped working out in general. Maybe like once or twice a week I do like at home light body weight or light dumbbell stuff. But I was not motivated at all, and I was tired, and I just kind of like fell off. And this is coming from like years before doing CrossFit every day for like 3 hours, and so I was like, oh my God, like what am I doing with my life? I look like shit and I feel like shit. And so just a month ago I started doing yoga. So I do like the power hot yoga, like 4 times a week. And then I try to do like maybe like a dumbbell workout 2 or 3 times a week. So that's kind of where I am now. And that's where I was like, well, like at least these things, for sure you're not building muscle. So like it's not like it's kind of like the whole I'll never have muscle. So at least I'll do things that don't promote muscle gain. And then you'll just know for sure that, you're not just sabotaging yourself or whatever, like as opposed to when I was like lifting weights and then I wasn't seeing results and I was like, well, but now I'm just like, well, now you're just doing yoga. So of course you don't have big muscles. So
I,
that's what I'm doing now.
I think there's also, well, first, that's a lot. And the dumbbell workouts can, depending on, can help increase muscle mass. But besides that, sometimes there's this distinction between, I want big muscles or I just want to be able to see the muscles that I do have. Often, the majority of time, what I see from people is that they actually just want to look lean and see the muscles that they do have
Mm-hmm.
versus wanting to be like incredibly big and muscular,
Right.
like Brooke Ents or
Right. Well, I mean, if we're honest, like, and I don't know if this is anybody's dream. Like, I won't, like, isn't that everybody? Obviously, it's not. But like, that was when I was like doing CrossFit all the time. I was like, that is what I want, giant thighs, like thighs I could just like smack somebody upside, like giant. And I never like could like grow my thighs or my ass, and I was like so frustrated, and I could never get like the ball of the bicep. It was always just like very lean, and I was like, "Mm, don't know how to make this like bigger muscle." And so now I'm just like, okay, well, you can just have your little muscles, and then maybe you can just work on being more defined as opposed to thicker, so yeah, with my failures I changed my goals, I guess, which
Which
I don't know.
you're doing this analysis process because in order to have huge, big muscles, or to, let's say, Brooke Ence is a great example, there is so much required to have a physique like that in terms of time, work, attention, effort, diet. You're talking for her 15 years of all of that happening.
Right.
So that is not a fast process. It's a really slow process. And it's like sometimes you analyze the problem and you see that you don't actually want to do the work that's required to get the result.
Right.
It's actually okay. It's actually okay. It's better to know that than it is to hold on to the goal and have this discrepancy of I'm going to keep believing that I want this goal when I don't really want to. Instead, I appreciate those bodies and I love them and I think that they're beautiful. And right now, I'm not doing what is required to make my body look that way. And it's also possible I couldn't make my body look that way. And that's actually okay too. I have another question for you before I'm going to go into my last two things that I think can help you. When you're feeling 100% your best, think about the time where you're like, I am on top of my stuff. I feel my best. I feel like, you put on your clothes and you're like, damn, I look good. I look good today. What are you doing not just with your nutrition, but I want to know about your nutrition. What does life look like when that's where you're at?
I guess in like all facets of life, like I have a routine and actually that happened last week where I was like, hey, you look pretty good and you're feeling pretty good. And like this leanness is like, kind of, this is good. And so I was like, yeah, okay. And it was like getting the routine set of, like when I work out, how I work out, but also not like being exhausted from working out. So kind of finding where that good balance is. And then nutrition wise, like finding like this kind of sweet spot of, at least for last week, of like you're getting, your vegetables, you're getting, like your protein or whatever. You can have your little treats, like the small little treat in the afternoon or the night, and you don't feel like deprived. And then you can, like it's kind of like setting the routine of all those things lined up, and then work is not like consuming my life. It's just also part of the equation of things that fit together. So it's just more balanced as opposed to like one or the other way, just like controlling my life. So yeah.
What do you think was making it last week so that you could be that way?
I think it was because, to me, kind of like how you pointed out, it's about creating systems. I was like mindful of, okay, what system for eating and working out and setting aside, your time for work and everything works the best. Like, what does that proportion look like? And like actually being mindful of how much time I'm spending on working out and, the food that I'm eating. And then being like, okay, like if you're mindful of this and you keep track of this and also keep track of how you feel, like that's where you're going to feel the best. And it did. And this week it's funny because it's Tuesday and yesterday was like a shit show where I was like, I'm just gonna eat snacks all day. And I'm like, oh God, am I on this downward spiral? Like now I've like lost control, I feel like. So
what happened there? What happened there?
Well, I don't know. I just, it's like tired. And then I was like, oh, well, maybe last week I went too far, like, because now I'm like, I feel tired. And now I feel tired and I want to feel like I want to have snacks because I'm tired. And then I'm physically tired, so I don't want to work out. And so if I'm not working out, I'll just have some more snacks and then let myself relax. And then I'm like, and then it kind of like powers down. And then I was like, saying that now, I'm like, oh God, do I have like these 1 week cycles where I'm like good for a week and then I'm like, ugh. And then like that's my maximum of holding any kind of rigid structures, like a week. And then I just abort ship. I don't know. But anyway.
Not your max at all. But a couple themes come up. So last week, it wasn't, your week last week doesn't, in my mind, sound very rigid at all. Sounds like there's this concept of discipline equals freedom. When you have discipline in certain areas of your life, like I'm going to have a routine, and we like routine. You like routine. Definitely in the camp of, you're probably like me. I like spontaneity, but I like spontaneity when it's like, we're going to be spontaneous from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. on Saturday. But I like, yes. Like for me, if spontaneity is stressful. So
yes, yeah,
kind of cut from the same cloth.
Yeah. Good. I'm glad I'm not some weird, like just a loner where I'm just like, I need structure.
There is discipline can equal freedom in a lot of ways. So your discipline, meaning last week, it sounds like you just made a lot of decisions for yourself. So you didn't end up in the moment being like, I'm tired, I'm just going to snack all day. Because you now versus future version of you want two different things. Everyone's like that. Where me right now is, I don't want to go to the gym right now. But if I imagined the future version of myself wishes I would go to the gym right now. There's definitely a balance to that, of course, with overtraining, but we're not talking about the exception to the rule. We're talking about generally the rule. Where I'm about to eat my second piece of cake. Future me is thinking, I wish I didn't eat that second. The couple themes that come up for you, I just want you to think, it wasn't super rigid last week. It doesn't sound like you were eating mindfully, you were eating more vegetables, you were being conscious of how much protein you were having, you were getting to the gym, you had your routine, you weren't letting work control your life. You had a work-life balance where you allotted an appropriate amount of time to work and then you turned it off for the rest of your life. Sounds like pretty ideal. Sounds awesome.
Yeah, but then it's like, it's funny when you say that, and then I look back and it's like, it's hard to like hold that ideal constant, like when things change, it's like, how do I not do work all the time? Or how do I keep having goddamn salads every day when I don't always want a salad, but I know that's what works, that it's hard to like maintain that. So like, yeah.
Yeah. And it's finding a balance of how do I sometimes not have a salad and maybe have 5 options of things that work for me and make me feel good instead of just one option of things, so that I can have enough variety that I don't feel like I'm so rigid in my choices and I can't have any flexibility at all. And which means because you also want to have fun at the same time. You also want to enjoy yourself. You want to be able to have a treat every once in a while and not feel guilty about it. And you have this balance of, I know I'm this structured and routine and very disciplined person in many ways, but I also want to enjoy my life at the same time and be flexible. So there's this dance that's happening there. And sometimes it takes being structured for like pushing through and being structured for longer to have confidence in yourself that I can actually follow through. And then I can let loose without unleashing everything all of this. A couple of themes that came through for you were when you were going to CrossFit classes, you were going all the time. And then now that you're going to yoga, you're going 4 times a week. And when you were doing your best, you were in nutrition, you were doing the 21-day challenge. So you had this thing to follow. So it's this level of some type of accountability that's helping you actually follow through on your commitments.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So how can we find, I think everybody needs a nutrition coach or anything like that. Is there anyone in your life or any way for you to keep yourself accountable in your day-to-day life that can help you capitalize on, I like accountability. I like going to the gym and they have a class for me to do. I'm less likely to do it if I have to do it at home.
So is your question, is there some kind of accountability blank that I can rely on for nutrition?
Anything would be a great start, because with nutrition, often when you become disciplined in one area, it naturally trickles out to other areas. If I'm going to make sure that I make my bed every morning, I have to wake up with enough time to be able to do that. And then I have to go to bed with enough time to not feel terrible in the morning. So it naturally starts trickling out. So nutrition would be a great place to start. I can think of, you could also do that with just your schedule in the week of making sure that you have your workouts planned for the week so that you know when you're going to go, or your work hours planned, or I don't know enough about your work schedule or your day-to-day, or like what random things could pop up that could throw you off balance. But it could be just creating your routine, could be in nutrition, it could be in fitness. But I would suggest just doing one versus trying to overhaul your whole life at once.
Okay. So like a routine for, like, the fitness one is easiest for me just because like I like it, and like,
and you've done it for a long time.
Yeah. And so like you said, like going to classes is the easiest accountability tool. And then the ones that I have to do on my own, I'm like, maybe you don't have to do that. I mean, like, who cares? Like you can just make time to do something else, you know? Yeah. So I don't know necessarily, apart from like the 4 days of yoga, how to like add, because I do know that when I do the little dumbbell workouts, I feel much better. Like I'm like, yes, this is like the trifecta of, like how you want to feel. But then I'm like, I don't want to do it. I have to, like muster it up and then go lift. So
when you do the dumbbell workouts, are they already like, I've planned ahead, this is when I'm going to go and do it? Is there a friend that maybe could do it with you, that you could join together?
I guess I could. I don't know. I mean, there is that, because I did read that in that 21-day challenge where it's like, find your accountability buddy. And that's where I'm like, if I'm not in a class, I don't know how to ask anybody to help me out. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to like take time away from somebody's life to be like, hey, can you like help me out here and just like let me like, I don't know, like, or whatever. So I'm not sure what that looks like.
Have you considered that you might be helping them
by like working out together or something?
Yeah.
I mean, there is always that. I just honestly, like, I hate to impose on people and be like, hey, I have a favor, or hey, do you want to do this? And then honestly, I hate asking them and then they say no. I hate, like, it's just like, okay, I don't want to do that. Never mind, I won't. So then I'll just like, I'll figure it out on my own. So like when I read that accountability buddy in the 21-day challenge, I was like, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to get an accountability buddy.
It's not an easy thing to do. It's scary because it's vulnerable and you put yourself out there, and they do have the opportunity to say no. I would reframe you, instead of like, can you do a favor for me? You might actually be doing a favor for them. That's actually the truth. They could be wanting to work out and in the same place as you and not being able to find a way to do it and just feeling frustrated, and they constantly bail on themselves. And you guys could be helping each other instead of you just being a burden on them. But conquering that asking for support, even in the face of potentially getting no, that's not the only place that you're afraid of that in your whole life. That probably shows up in lots of places. Which is surprising that we're on this call, because you reached out and you were like, hey, let's get on an hour and talk about what's going on in my life. So you did it. And I said, yes. So this is the first yes.
Yay. Yeah.
I see in your face that this is a scary one for you, which is why I'm like, you're just like, I hear what she's saying and I know I could benefit from this, but it's so scary and so uncomfortable. And it would just be way more comfortable for me to just do it on my own. But at the same time, I'm trying to do it on my own. I'm actually not doing it.
Right. Yeah.
So no matter which path we take, there's going to be a certain level of discomfort. And maybe this one is a threshold that's a little too high for you right now. But the highest leverage points are going to be the points that you know consistently work for you, like accountability. So finding some type of accountability around, this was just one example. I could keep going. Like maybe in your nutrition, don't weigh and measure everything you're eating, but just write it down.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter what the serving size was. You could totally guess. Just put it in MyFitnessPal or write it down on a piece of paper. And at least there's a moment of, I have to think about eating this before I eat it because I have to write it down. So
Right.
Accountability to myself of, I don't get to just eat what I want without putting it down on the piece of paper. And no, none of that. So maybe that could be an accountability. But I'm only digging on the asking someone one because it brought
Did you see the fear in my eyes? It's just like, yeah, and that's funny. I hadn't thought that was a big thing. I was just like, oh, we are capable of always doing things on your own. So just do it. And then things like this, and like, doesn't happen.
Yeah, and sometimes you just need a little bit of support. And maybe in certain ways I know for sure you are very capable of doing things on your own, which is why you have that belief. Like, I can just do things on my own. In this case, you're risking continuing to break down your trust with yourself, where that's what I want you to avoid. I want you to get some support because it can help you follow through and give you that accountability that does work in other areas of your life. It's hard asking for it's more like, will you hang out with me and do a workout with me? And that's even, I went through this phase of, I wanted female friendships and I just didn't know how. And my husband, Michael, asked me, he said, every week you have to go on a blind girl date. Ask somebody at the gym to go for coffee with you or to hang out with you. And I did it. It was so hard. And I had so many coffee dates that I'm like, we do not connect. This makes no sense for my life. In the end, it was definitely at least worth conquering the social anxiety that's still kind of there when I hang out with girls, but it's less than it was before. So that's two things for you. The first thing I'll remind you is you might not know what the right thing is for you right now, and that's okay, but try not to bite off so much that it so inconveniences your life that you don't get the results that you want and then you quit. I'm curious, I'm going to collect the data and see what's going to solve my problem instead of, I'm going to pick this is what this Adee and Michael said you're supposed to do, and I'm going to just revamp my life and do it for 5 to 7 days and then.
Okay.
That's the first one. And the second one is to find some type of accountability in the areas where you're finding yourself with like a sticking point. And it can be self-accountability, can be external accountability. I highly encourage external accountability. From our experience, and it's been 6 years coaching people now, the people who are surrounded by others who have similar goals or similar lifestyles or can support you in what it is that you're doing automatically make you more successful. If you hang out with people who drink beer every night, you are more likely to drink more beer. Just 100% for sure. There's just you're surrounded, and those are the people you're around. You do become a lot like the people you're around. So finding someone to work out with in the other days would equal into having a new friend who has a similar lifestyle to you, which can then trickle out into other areas. And then I had a third one, but I don't think I'm going to say it because I feel like it's going to be too much.
Oh, no. Now you have to say it. What do you just say it and then, yeah.
It's just around protein intake and just protein. But okay. I'll tell you when we get off the call, I'll tell you.
Or in yoga, how they say, they're like, this is just a suggestion. It's just, I'm laying it out there. You can take it or leave it.
my suggestion, because you said you were struggling with protein, on one hand, I think the struggle with protein is I want to have muscles and I know protein is important, so I want to incorporate protein in my diet. And I think that mindset can be troublesome sometimes because it's another rule you have to follow to get this thing that you might not be getting, which adds to more frustration. But just adding more protein into your diet could be, I would suggest not necessarily diving into powder, maybe finding some protein source. I'll send you a list when we're done of all of the protein sources outside of protein powder that you can possibly tap into, including plant-based protein sources that will have more protein in them. Just finding some protein that you like and incorporating that into your diet more often. I don't like protein powder either. So I said that, I was like, I also wouldn't want to have protein shakes to get my protein.
Well, then, yeah. I mean, I even bought, because whey just like makes me sick. Like my stomach just rumbles. And then it's a disaster in the bathroom when I drink whey protein. So then I bought the vegan one, and then I was like reading how vegan protein has like lead in it, and I was like, oh God, I'm gonna die. But so then I like try to stick to like foods, and then I was like, sometimes I'm like, I'm not even hungry, but I have to like eat more protein or whatever. But okay, that's good to know.
Okay, how is all of that landing for you?
It's good. It kind of exposed, where one of my sticking points is in kind of achieving some of these goals, or even in just like thinking about it, and why when I think about it, I just like kind of like was analysis paralysis, where I'll just go like, never mind, because then find an accountability buddy. I was like, well, what if I can't? And what if I'm bothering them? And then I'm like, never mind. And then I just don't even do it. And so, yeah, so that's just kind of the first thing you said about, there's no hard, fast rule here or equation we're going to follow right now that's going to work. It's a process of discovery right now. And that's where it's like, to me, like initially uncomfortable, because it's like, then what am I doing? Like, if I don't know, the exact thing I'm going to be doing, what am I doing here? But like letting go of that is, yeah.
Yeah, that's a great takeaway. Learning patience. And it's definitely going to take more than 5 to 7 days.
I do have a question about that, because like talking about this, where it's like, okay, if my goal is to be able to kind of, like the goal that I wrote is like to accurately attain whatever composition goal I'd like. So whether it be, gain this much muscle, or, like lose this body fat percentage, or whatever it be, with the tool of nutrition. Like if that's my goal, is one of the ultimate goals as well weighing and tracking your food? Like, is that what I'm working towards? Or is that just like one thing that could work that I don't necessarily have to do to be able to accurately change my body composition? Like, is like in all of this, it's like, well, you're just going to start writing what you eat in the day, because ultimately you want to be able to weigh and track your food. It's like, is that one of the goals that I will have to embrace?
I like the question. I would be of the belief that it is not the case, that is not this goal that you absolutely have to achieve in order to achieve those goals. There are so many examples of people out there that do not weigh and measure and track their food that achieve goals like that. There is unlikely to find any example of people that you're trying to live a similar lifestyle to them that don't have any boundaries around their food at all.
Right.
So they have some level of, I follow a paleo style nutrition, so therefore my food choices would fit into that category, or they limit themselves to how many desserts that they have, or they won't have sugar, or there's some level of boundaries of how much, how often, and what it is that they're eating in order to be able to control some variables to get a result that they're looking for. If there's no control at all, then it's hard to toggle any of the fields to know what it is helping you achieve your results. But there's tons of examples of people out there that don't do that at all. And there's also a group of people that eat intuitively. For you, intuitive eating seems the most overwhelming at all because it has no structure and it's more just listening to yourself. And that's a skill that you can develop through having some level of structure. So you have structure, you can understand some of your cues. And with the structure, you can notice, oh, I get stressed out here and I want to eat this, even though it doesn't fit that. And you can start noticing those things so that you can transfer that over to when you have less structure. But it doesn't have to be the ultimate goal at all. Are you asking because if that is the ultimate goal, you want to skip ahead and just go there?
No, because I was like, if that is the ultimate goal, I don't want to do this, because then I'm like, for whatever reason, whenever I start doing it, it just makes me makes me upset. It bothers me. And then I'm like, fuck it. And then it just almost rebounds to the opposite where I'm like, I feel so constricted when I have to, set this parameter of calories and then the proportion of macros. And then I have to fit in that for my food, surprisingly, for my, cause I do this in everything else, but for my food, it stresses me out and makes me depressed and angry and frustrated. And then I'm like, I hate this. And then I don't want to do it. And then I just want to have a tiny piece of chocolate or a tiny little thing that if it doesn't fit in this goddamn equation, I can't have it. And then that's all I think about, so that's probably a little too much.
Wow. There's a lot of people that would listen to this and completely relate. And that's not 100% of, all of our coaches do not, if a client doesn't want to be tracking their food, we will implement any of the other strategies that we talked about, whether it's just writing down your food or finding an accountability partner or finding routine in your life and making a plan in your schedule ahead of time so you can fit in the things that make you feel your best. Because yes, we all want some aesthetic goal or we want to look a certain way. But what you really want is to just feel good. Where the real feel good comes from is I'm treating myself well, I'm honoring my commitments, and I'm being active and I'm putting things in my body that make me feel good. And that ultimately leads you to just feeling great about yourself.
I'm absorbing it now. I'm absorbing everything that we've been talking about and trying not to be over analytical and hard on myself. So
patience, compassion, and in this area, it's worth trying to turn off you don't even have to, you're so overanalyzed, muscle is grown that you don't even have to try. It's going to happen whether you want it to or not. You're going to analyze whether you want it to or not. You don't have to try. You can put all your attention and energy towards being a little bit kinder and looser and patient and flexible, and the analyzing piece of you is not going away. It's strong in you. It's there. It's your strength.
Why can't that transition into my quads or something? Why
can't I get rid of my cellulite on my butt? Damn it.
Adee, thanks so much for everything. This has been very helpful. Very, very helpful.
You're welcome. Thank you for being my first call. I have one more today, and I feel so more prepared and ready for it. And thank you. Thanks for joining us. Stay in touch by signing up for our newsletter at workingagainstgravity.com or on Instagram at workingagainstgravity.
And don't forget to subscribe to us on iTunes, leave us a 5-star review, and refer a friend. We'll be back next week with another episode. Talk to you then.